Hello and welcome to Season 3 of Who You Don't See, the podcast celebrating the people behind the stars. From choreographers and songwriters to makeup artists and hairstylists. If they're part of a celebrity's team, we are all about getting to know them. I'm your host, Megan Lawton, and this season we're taking you back to the 90s and noughties, a time of low-rise jeans, bodycon dresses and huge eyeliner. I am so excited to introduce this week's guest, Naomi Parry, Amy Winehouse's stylist.
We were always up against it. There was no, I'd just basically be following her around with an outfit, just like, Amy, please just look at this, please decide, right until the last second, which actually meant sometimes we'd put something on, and as we were walking to stage, she'd decide that it wasn't the right length. And there was one time in particular, and it's this gold, it was like a gold D&G dress. She wanted to wear that dress, but she wanted it to be shorter, but it needed to be shorter like then and there. So I had to hack the bottom of this dress off, and she went on stage with an unhemmed dress.
Naomi was in her late teens when Amy asked her if she'd be her stylist. That was 2006, the year Amy released Back to Black. The next 6 years were a whirlwind of world tours, festivals and music videos. Naomi was there for the good times and the times of turmoil too. In the pod, we chat about the outfits that Naomi designed for Amy and tragically never got to wear. We also speak about Amy's style, a style that in many ways still influences what we wear now, as well as talking about all the mad backstage moments that often meant Amy was late to stage. Enjoy. So Naomi, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
It's a shame that we're only doing audio because you look immaculate in that bright red, big puffy sleeves shirt you're wearing.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought it'd make an effort.
Love that. Well, you are a stylist, and that's why we're chatting to you now. I know you are not so much a stylist. What would you say you're doing now? What would you say your job title is?
I sort of under the umbrella of creative director, but I'm doing some stuff in TV at the moment. I'm doing some fashion consultancy. So it's sort of a mixed bag of things. It's really hard I get asked all the time what I do, and I don't really know what to say. I'm just like creative projects.
It's that classic 2022 job title. Have you heard of the multi-hyphen method where you're like, I am this and a bit of that, hyphen that, hyphen that. Like, get you a girl who can do it all.
Absolutely, yeah. That's it. But yeah, not a stylist.
But if we take it back to 2006, you were a stylist. You were Amy Winehouse's stylist. Before even working with Amy, how did you get into the world of styling? Was she the first sort of client you had?
So when I was studying, a friend of mine's mum was a stylist, and she just asked if I'd be interested in assisting her. And I can't even remember how it came about. It was paid, which was unusual.
You must have been fashionable at the time. You wouldn't ask an unfashionable person to be a stylist.
I mean, maybe, but she asked me to work with her, so I started assisting her. And then I had another stylist that I was assisting as well. And I'd wanted to be a fashion designer. I'd wanted to go into design, but my tutor at the time had said, you'd be better suited as a stylist. But it wasn't really what I wanted to do. But then, I was getting paid and I started doing bits and pieces in Camden. When I was friends, I'd already met Amy at this point. She was a friend of mine. And then Amy just asked me completely out of the blue. I'd never, ever in a million years, we didn't even talk about work. She was my friend. We kept it very separate. And she just asked me out of the blue to work with her. So yeah, she was my first major client, and I am so aware of how lucky I was in, as right place, right time kind of thing. And I think that I know that social media has changed the landscape quite a bit. It's easier to get your work out there and to showcase your style and everything, but I still think it's very much about right place, right time for a lot of people that land that first client. It's if you're going to go into that sort of world of styling, musician, celebrity, it's a good place to, if you get that first client, then you're kind of off, really.
And you started working with her 2006. That's the year she released Back to Black. So by this point, she's making her footprint on the sort of pop culture scene. Like, she's really, really climbing that ladder. What was her look at the time, and why do you think she wanted a stylist?
So she'd had a stylist before, and I think, and this, there was no slight on the stylist at all, because she was fantastic. But I think the record label, Amy's style at the time, it was before I came on board, and it was really, for her previous album, Frank, Amy was still in this sort of, Jane Norman dresses and like little handbags, and just hadn't really found her look. And then when she moved to Camden, she sort of was very inspired by everybody in Camden. And I mean, I don't know whether you know Camden that well, but it's just sort of a melting pot for lots of different sort of subcultures. And she took a lot of, inspiration from them, and her look started to develop. But she was still very much shopping and buying things from Rocket Vintage and like the occasional Fred Perry shirt and whatever. And she wasn't like a big shopper. I mean, she'd buy things, but I think when Back to Black came out and suddenly everything was elevated, and she no longer wanted this sort of vintage look anymore. I think she wanted to, elevate her style, and she needed somebody, everybody kind of, although lots of people say, we don't need a stylist. I think when you get to that level, you may not need somebody to tell you how to dress, but to have a stylist that can kind of go out and be your eyes and discover these new brands when you don't have time to do that because you're focusing on your music or whatever else it is that you're doing. I think that's just what she wanted. She just wanted somebody to kind of help her. She was very much the architect of her look. I didn't ever force her into anything. I'd sort of encouraged her into things and introduced her to new brands. But I think she just wanted somebody that she trusted, that could go out and just get her things and introduce her to those new brands and kind of just elevate her look slightly.
So when she, I don't know where you are, in the pub, in the cafe, wherever she asked you, did you instantly think, God, I've got so many ideas? Like, if your mate's already, like I look at my girls and I see things and I'm shopping, and I'm like, oh my God, Sarah would look great in that. Or whatever, you think of things already in your head. Where did your mind go when Amy was like, I want you to be my stylist?
So I was already on a shoot. I was assisting on a shoot when I got the phone call from my ex-boyfriend at the time saying that Amy had asked him to ask me. So that was kind of bizarre. But oddly, I'd seen Amy perform once, and it was at the Old Blue Last. And she was very casual. I mean, we were already on a night out at that point. So she was in like jeans, ballet pumps, Fred Perry top, like
the classic Amy Winehouse outfit.
Yeah, exactly. Not stage wear. So I had no idea what she wore on stage. And so, I obviously thought about what she would look great in, but I had to understand what the parameters were. And then it was just a case of kind of, I was taught, her friend Tyler, actually, he was like, look, she likes to wear little dresses on stage. So I wasn't given a brief. I was just like, yeah, can you be my stylist? Off you go. Here's our first job. It was like T4 or something. And
it's like an apprentice challenge.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then it was just, a lot of it, I wasn't given a budget, and a lot of it is dictated actually by what's in the fashion, what the fashion houses are doing at that point in time and what they've got in the press office. It's obviously like a season in advance. So it was more about seeing what they had and then kind of putting that together. But no, I didn't really have any real ideas about how I wanted her to look at first. I think I just understood that her album, because a lot of people sort of pigeonhole her in this like 60s girl group kind of style. And actually her album was really contemporary. And I felt that her look needed to replicate that. It had influences of, you know, all these other eras, and then influences from all these other styles, genres of music. But then there was a real contemporary feel to the album. You know, it was a new way of kind of putting it all together, and I felt like her look should kind of emulate that. So I was kind of looking at more contemporary looking brands.
Do you remember the first outfit you put her in?
It was really simple. It was like a pair of cropped jeans that she rolled, like skinny fit cropped jeans that she actually rolled even shorter, so they were almost like capri pants, and a white shirt and some really like platform purple shoes. And this was for a performance on T4. And then the second outfit, I think, was a completely different. I put her in a Julian McDonald like flapper style dress, and it was for the Hootenanny show, Jules Holland Hootenanny show, which was a bit of it wasn't a disaster.
Oh,
but that's when I discovered that Amy she was very specific about her underwear.
Wow.
And she liked to wear like frilly French knickers, and always wanted to wear a bra, always wanted to have chicken fillets in them. And that wasn't really conducive with a sheer skin tight sort of like flapper dress that it just sort of bunched up over everything, and it was falling down, and I was trying to tape it and I was trying to pin it, and she was like wriggling around on stage and pulling it around, and I was just like, oh my God, okay, this is probably the last job that I'm going to do with her. I'm probably going to get sacked.
That's a bad day at work.
Yeah, but it was fine. And actually what was good about it is it was completely different to what anybody put her in before. And so I think that was the point. They could see the potential. And we were just really finding our feet at that point. And also, when we first started working together, it was really difficult to get brands to loan to her because she was a relatively new artist, and people knew her as a style. And it's like just getting that first brand to loan, that first big designer to loan, then everybody kind of, more brands are open to loaning when they feel like they're aligned with other great brands. So
I got so many questions already from that story. One, as a stylist, is it your responsibility to source the frilly knickers, or would Amy have brought them herself and said, this is what I'm wearing today?
So at first, before I started shopping for her, I would bring underwear. It's the stylist's job to make sure that you've got everything that works for that outfit. So if it's a sheer dress, you want skin-colored pants that, seamless or whatever. And a strapless bra or tape or whatever. But Amy was insistent that she wanted to wear the underwear that she'd arrived in, which was like, probably a provocateur with frills. And she wanted to wear a bra, sometimes two bras.
Wow.
And it was just, she had a bit of flexibility, but when she was adamant about wanting to wear something, she would wear it, and there was not a lot you could do about it. You just had to kind of work around it. So I would bring underwear, but she would wear her own and then insist on that.
And then second question, and that's fascinating, the double bra, all about the support. Love that. If you're dancing around on stage, you need the support. Second question, when it comes to getting designers to give, you're essentially like cold calling at these designer houses, being like, trust me, I have an artist who's an up and coming star here. Please trust us with some of your garments. How does that interaction work?
It can be, you can be met with a lot of ignored emails, actually. You just won't even get a response. Or you'll get a polite decline or a reason. It's usually like, oh, we haven't actually got anything in the office, which generally means we don't want to loan to you, but we're not going to say that because we don't want to be rude. But maybe your artist isn't in. I mean, they tend to have like lists of target, artists and celebrities, and they only have like a small list of people that they want to target. And so it's totally understandable, but you just kind of have to slowly build that up and build up a relationship with PR companies that tend to look after lots of different brands. So there'd be a PR company that has got, say, 10 brands, and there's 2 of those brands they'll loan to you, but the others they won't, because they're not, that person isn't on their sort of list. It was kind of tricky to navigate at first, but obviously when she after the Brits in 2007, when, you know, she won a couple of awards and I think sort of became a British household name, it became a lot easier. And we actually started to get labels just sending us stuff. Just, you know, I'd arrive at Amy's house and it would all go through the management company instead of coming via me, which was kind of crazy at the time. But I'd arrive at her house and there'd just be bags and bags of like Givenchy and, you know, all these other brands. But they were kind of things that perhaps Amy, because it hadn't gone through me and it hadn't gone through Amy directly, they were just sending her gifts, which was really lovely. But Amy was so particular about things. She wasn't the sort of person that would just wear something because it was a designer label. She didn't really care about that so much. You know, more often than not, it wouldn't get worn, but it was a lovely gesture, you know.
How does then the process of deciding an outfit come about? If she seems like, from what you're saying, she's quite particular, understandably, about what she's wearing. Say if you've got an event coming up like the Brits, where do those conversations start? Is it your responsibility as stylist to be like, here's 5 options? Or will she say, you know what, I really fancy wearing, I want cleavage, I want a bright colour dress, like, you go find it, Naomi?
We rarely had those discussions. I mean, generally, you should have a couple of fittings prior to particularly something like the Brits. You know, you want a good few sessions because you want to nail down the outfit, and then it might need alterations, and then you need to see that person again to make sure those alterations are correct and that they're happy with everything. And then, you know, you might even have a fitting for accessories or whatever. But Amy wasn't a big fan of the fittings. So we occasionally had one. We did have one for the Brits, the 2007 Brits, but not for 2008. It was all... So it did mean that I would have to get, because you never know, because I mean, you know how it is when you might wake up and feel differently to one day and just be like, you know what, I don't really fancy wearing that.
And your body feels different some days and you're like, I've got a bloated belly, I don't want to show my arms. Like, things change.
I wear all black today. So I'd always have to come with loads of options, particularly if we haven't been able to do a fitting, which I think possibly in the whole 5 years that I worked with Amy, we did maybe 3 fittings. Yeah, it was just crazy. It was quite difficult to work like that, but you know, I just accepted that that's how it was. But it did mean that I'd have to pull in loads and loads of stuff. So we'd have a rail and I'd have, roughly about 5 outfits. I'd then have some like backup options, but they were like, I think it's unlikely she's going to want to wear those. But I'd usually have one outfit that I thought she's going to love that. And 99% of the time that would be the one that she'd wear and she'd be happy with it. But we were always, when we were getting dressed for something, we were always up against it. There was no, you know, I'd just basically be following her around with an outfit, just like, Amy, please just look at this, please decide, like, you know, right until the last second, which actually meant sometimes we'd put something on, and as we were walking to stage, she'd decide that it wasn't the right length, or, you know, something wasn't right about it. And there was one time in particular, and it's this gold, it was like a gold D&G dress, like A-line dress, and she decided just before she was going on stage, but we were already probably about half an hour late on stage, which was fairly typical, that it was too long and she wanted it shorter, and I had to hack the bottom of this dress off because she didn't want to get anything else. She wanted to wear that dress, but she wanted it to be shorter, but it needed to be shorter like then and there. So I had to hack the bottom of this dress off, and she went on stage with an unhemmed dress, and I meant to get it hemmed afterwards, but you know, I knew she'd never wear it again, but I never did. And it went into an exhibition a couple of years ago at the Grammy Museum, and it was just there, and it had all frayed. And I think this is where this sort of her sort of anti-style approach to style comes from, because, and it, you know, a bit kind of like punk really, where everything's sort of, you can see the inner workings of a dress or of an outfit, the safety pins, the frayed edges, you know, everything's kind of like a bit raw.
I was going to say, like, she's almost quite disruptive as a woman on a red carpet. Like, the idea, you think, is you have to look sort of immaculate, almost dull, like your makeup is flawless, your outfit is flawless from every angle. it seems that she wasn't that. That must have been a wild ride for you, just to be like, okay, so we're really like, we're not prepping bags ahead of time. This is very like ad hoc of the moment. But ultimately, like that, if any, going back to what you were saying earlier about capturing who she was on her album with her outfits, that is essentially her.
Yeah, but for me as a sort of young budding stylist, I was very aware that people probably thought that I was rubbish, or they thought that she didn't have a stylist, you know, and it's like, no, I'm here, that's my work.
Did it feel like sabotage when you were chopping the Dolce & Gabbana dress? Like,
Totally. There was this, we we went to Copenhagen on the first tour, and we did a bit of shopping together, which was a real rare thing. I would have loved to have gone shopping with Amy, but you know, it was just only occasionally we do it. But she found this Jeremy Scott jumpsuit, like catsuit even. Sorry, it wasn't a jumpsuit, it was a catsuit. And it had this fabulous print. It was very Amy, but it was, and she put it on and she was like jumping around the tour bus in it like a little monkey. It was really funny. And then the following day, because we were traveling, you know, straight to venues overnight, and we'd arrive there and then we were playing a show, you know, the touring is really intense. And she woke up in the morning and was like, Nay, I want to wear this on stage, but can you turn it into a dress? And I had like a couple of hours to turn a catsuit into a mini dress, and I had to hand stitch it, and it was just like, you know, it was so raw. But as I was doing it, I'm like hacking this thing up that this designer has created to be a certain way, and I was just thinking like, God, I wonder what they'd think of this.
that's sacrilege.
Yeah, and then again, that was also exhibited. And when it was exhibited, because she then wore it subsequently as a top tucked into jeans, so she cut it even shorter. So, you know, it no longer had a hem, and there were like safety pins holding it together, and you could see the bits of my stitching that were all coming apart. And it was just like, yeah.
This is not me at my best, everybody. I can do better.
Yeah, totally. I just didn't really have the tools to do better. But
well, when you're on a bus in Copenhagen, I guess what you get is what you're given.
Exactly.
It's an understatement to say that Amy was like the moment of the time, and she completely kind of shifted how people dress. She made vintage clothing fashionable. She brought in the beehive, the big eyeliner. As a young stylist who was just kind of like going along with the ride, did you ever get the chance to zoom out and think, God, like we're sort of setting the tone culturally here? Or was it so just like you didn't have headspace to even think like that?
I didn't think like that at all. I was immensely proud of how, you know, at first I think people were very, and I think even actually now people are very torn with Amy's style, but you know, at first people were like, oh, this is weird and new, but I don't know whether I like it. And then as more people started, you know, more designers started getting inspired by her look, and I really noticed that, and I was really proud of it, and I knew that we were doing something amazing. But I also, you know, it was her music as well. They went hand in hand together, you know, one without the other it wouldn't have been as impactful, I don't think. So, you know, and I was totally aware of that. If her music had been rubbish, you know, people wouldn't have been as excited by her style. It was just like the whole package, really. So yeah, and I never took credit for that. I never felt like it was my place to take credit for that. But I did, you know, on reflection, I do feel our work together collaboratively, you know, it was really good. It was, and I'm pleased, I'm proud of it. And I'm proud of her for not adhering to the norm of perfection and you know, everything in place and whatever. I thought it was really inspiring, actually. And wearing the same thing twice, you know.
Yeah, that shouldn't be disruptive, and yet it is disruptive.
Yeah. I mean, I think she had this dress. There was this brand called Arrogant Cat that it was such a wonderfully trashy little label, which was, you know, a bit wonderfully trashy, so it was perfect. And we got this dress for the Tears Dry on their own video. And she just loved it. And I don't know what it was about this dress, because it used to really frustrate me because it would ride up and bunch over her belt, but she absolutely loved it. I think she felt really good, and it was really comfortable, and she ended up wearing it on 2 other occasions. I mean, to the point where this dress was like I mean, I know there's only 3 times, but she'd wear it and then she'd wear it for the rest of the evening and whatever. And it was just like, yeah, you probably can't get away with wearing it for a 4th time. But I thought it, looking back on it again, it's great that she did that, you don't have to have a different outfit all the time. It's not, if you love something, wear it more than once, especially with all this sort of throwaway fashion kind of thing.
And it makes your life easier as a stylist, less outfits for you to buy if she likes the ones in her wardrobe.
Yeah, I mean, it did mean that well, yeah, it was a bit of a waste of the prep time, but fine, whatever. The most important thing is that, you go on stage and you feel great and you feel comfortable. And I totally recognize that.
Would you have to be during a performance side of stage in case an outfit bunched up or something, tweaking mid-performance, all of that stuff? Because she was a mover and groover on stage. Like, she was not a standstill kind of performer.
Oh yeah, I was right at the edge of the stage with a backup outfit just in case, always with a pair of ballet slippers, because she'd wear super high heels to kind of totter on, and then she'd do a little bit of shimmying, and usually by the 3rd song she's like, right, I'm going to get into my ballet flats, and she'd come off stage and then hand them to her and off she'd go. But yeah, always there with tit tape, safety pins. I had tons of safety pins pinned to me, ready to go. You're just styling kit, but ballet pumps always at side of stage, and I'd always make sure they were there before we even went on stage, so I knew that they were there and knew exactly where they were.
I love that, like the Amy Winehouse checklist: spare outfit, ballet pumps.
Exactly.
Eyeliner. Did she have a makeup artist, or did she do that herself?
She did. It depended on what she was doing. So yeah, I mean, at first, when I first started working with her, she had her glam squad, which she called the Trashettes. We were called the Trashettes, and it was me, Talia, who was her makeup artist, and Tracy, who was her hairstylist. And we'd all be there side of stage at everything. And then I think as with touring, it was just, she generally did her makeup herself, and her hair. Actually, she did have a hairstylist for a bit on tour, but by the end, it was just me and her. She had a PA by that point, and it was just her PA prepping her hair and me. And obviously I didn't do makeup or anything. She didn't really like having her face touched at that point. So, but yeah, for major events, Brits, Grammys, she had the full works.
And on a date, you mentioned sort of big events like that. Was there, set the scene of like how the stress levels were backstage? Was it stressful? Or did she kind of just like let that all glaze over? Maybe you as a stylist was like, I'm finding this stressful, and Amy was like, no, it's just another day at work.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it was chaos. I was really stressed. And obviously, the tour management, they don't want to be sort of shouting at the artist to hurry up. So they shout at us. It's our job.
The Trashettes.
Yeah. She's taking forever to get ready because she's off like chatting to her band and asking her band how their family all are one by one. And, it's like a 10-strong band. It's our fault that she's not ready. But so it was stressful, particularly if she'd sort of turned up a bit late or she wasn't really in the mood. It could be really difficult. She was a little bit volatile. I mean, she was really volatile. It's, an understatement. And so depending on however she was feeling, that would affect everybody. So if she was in a mood, it was like, oh God, treading on eggshells a little bit. And then if you're late as well, and then you've got the tour manager telling you she needs to hurry up, she's got 15 minutes and she hasn't even got her makeup on. It's just, it's stressful. It's really difficult. I think the Glastonbury in 2008, I think when Jay-Z headlined, we were backstage and Amy was just running around chatting to everybody, and she was chatting to Jay-Z and Beyonce, which was totally surreal. And then she's off having a chat with Jack White, and I'm like there literally with her dress, like sort of following her, like sort of pointing at the dress wide-eyed, like, I really need to get you in this, like you're going on stage in a minute, you can't be late for this because it's going to mess up everybody else's performances, because the whole thing will get delayed. And you're panicking, but she was like totally chilled, like about the whole thing, and just she could get ready so quickly. So as soon as you managed to grab her attention, she could be ready in like 20 minutes.
I mean, that's helpful. But it always seems like it's like a last minute thing.
Yeah, always. Everything was last minute. I mean, me even being asked to do a job always felt very last minute. They'd be like, she's doing this tomorrow, can you do it? And I'm just like, I don't have these clothes just in my house. I need to prep for this. It's not like a makeup artist where they have all of their kit is on them at all times. I have to go and source these things or buy something or whatever. Actually, you know what? That Glastonbury, I bought that dress on the way down to Glastonbury.
Did you?
On the way there.
Where?
It was Luella. It was like a heavily beaded dress. We had to sew her into it. But I paid for it and I picked it up on my way to Glastonbury because it was like, they just suddenly decided she needs her stylist today. We want her to look fabulous.
Wow.
We're not going to her own devices because she'll end up in jeans and a Fred Perry top.
Incredible.
Not that there's anything wrong with that,
but Glastonbury, I think you can up it a bit for Glastonbury. You mentioned there that she was quite a volatile character. I think people sense that from sort of everything we've learned about her over the years. We sort of touched on it earlier, but so much about what you wear is based upon your mood. Like if you don't feel great, you just want to wear a big baggy jumper. To have been styling someone for glamorous occasions when at times they weren't in that headspace, that must have been quite difficult.
Yeah, I mean, Amy and I got on so well. I think in our entire friendship, even, and working, we only had one argument, and it was so stupid, and it was over in about 15 minutes, and we both laughed it off. But like, we both had a real mutual respect for each other, and she knew that I had to do my job, and she wanted, even if she was being really difficult, she always, she respected the fact that people were trying to get a job done and they were all there to help her. So she could be really moody, she could be really miserable, but she would, even in those moments, she would try and make your life as easy as possible. But yeah, it was difficult. But she was never like a real diva or anything like that. She just, like we all, get fed up and annoyed, and could be something going on outside that she'd be angry about, and it's hard. She wore her emotions on her sleeve, so
yeah.
And everybody cared deeply for her, so it was, it did affect everybody. But you should always put this thing on and get on stage eventually, and it'd be fine, and it'd be like, oh God, thank God.
A sigh of relief and a gin and tonic. And in the times where in the public eye she was documented to be struggling, did you notice that designers would stop offering their clothes for her to wear? Was that?
Yeah, totally. That's when you started getting the emails again saying we don't have anything in the office at the moment, or people would ignore you. And I totally got it. PR, they don't, they're looking after the brand, and they don't want it necessarily associated with somebody that's really struggling, as fickle as it might seem. I totally get it. So there were just a couple of brands that really stood by her through that. So like, Dolce & Gabbana were one of them. So yeah, it became increasingly more difficult to pull things in and loan stuff. But at that point in time, I was like, let's just make our own stuff, let's just do it ourselves. Obviously, I never told her that, and you don't tell an artist, this brand doesn't want to loan to you anymore because of your life choices, because nobody wants to hear that, especially when they're struggling. So I was just like, let's do our own brand, let's do our own thing. Which is when I had the idea for the Fred Perry collaboration, and I actually spoke, because I worked really closely with them, and that's how that kind of came about, because I just thought, she goes and does something, and it'd also be good for her to have another creative outlet. But if she does something like that, it will give her like a step on the ladder of the fashion industry, and then maybe we can build something from that, which is then subsequently where the tour dresses all came from, that we did ourselves. So but it became really difficult, and it's really disheartening, and it's really embarrassing when you contact a PR company or a brand, and they're just like, yeah, we don't want to loan to you anymore. And it's just, you feel sad. I felt sad for Amy, and I felt, it's just because it was just so reflective of how how much she was struggling, really.
Tragically, I know you designed a whole load of outfits for a tour that she never even got to go on. She never got to wear those outfits. One, as a stylist, but also your mates. Like, that to have those kind of clothes still exist and Amy not exist, and because of the like horrible circumstance of everything, that must be really, really tough.
Yeah. I mean, those dresses represent, I have such a mixed feelings towards them, because we talked about them in Brazil, and the Brazilian tour was good. It wasn't fantastic, but it was good. It was really promising. So it was kind of like everybody just felt, oh, good, she's going to pull through. And so they represented this like new beginning, and this, we're going to step it up a bit. We're going to start designing more stuff. But again, I had zero time to get those dresses together. I think we had about 8 weeks or something. And again, no fittings. I think we had one fitting and that was it. It was just crazy. But so I had to take them all on this tour, but she absolutely loved them, and she was so excited. That first dress that she wore, the bamboo dress, even though that was the worst show I've ever seen in my entire life, and it was harrowing to watch, she loved the dress, and I was trying to get her out of it afterwards, and she just insisted on wearing it to the hotel. She was like jumping around the plane on it. It was like, she loved them, and I think she felt quite proud and excited by the fact that she was wearing things that no one else in the world had. There's no other dresses like this in existence,
and designed by her mate as well. You've got that extra kind of attachment.
We'd done this thing and we'd done it together, and they were like, so they're each of them were inspired by her. They all have a story, they all meant something, and then obviously when it all fell apart, they kind of represented like this sort of, I knew after that show, I felt like this is it, this is over. Like this is really, really, really bad situation, and she needs a long time off to get better. So yeah, there's a lot of sadness around them, but there's also, I love them because they are just her. They are just her. There's like no one else has worn them. They're, everything was really thought out. I had like little styling things built into them. So because she wore these frilly knickers, we had like a slightly wider panel at the back, so the invisible zip didn't catch her, and because they were super tight, they didn't catch the knickers, they didn't catch her skin. We had like a built-in Spanx dress to kind of smooth out her silhouette. Like, everything was, and they were kind of based on a dress that she'd worn in Brazil that she'd absolutely loved. So everything was really thought out, from the fabric to the prints to just everything. And they were made to, they were measured to fit her body, and she had very little hips, and she'd had a boob job at that point, so her body was quite I mean, everybody's body's unique, but very unique. And so they're just, they are, to me, they are Amy. They are, as they're a little part of her. So yeah, I love them, but obviously it's sad.
10 years on, or 11 years on, can you now sort of look back at clothes and think about the fond memories? Like, could you pick a favourite Amy outfit that just for you encapsulates Amy and your memories together, or her as a performer?
Oh yeah, totally. So it's both the Brit Awards, the yellow preen dress that she wore to the Brits, which I think was like maybe my 4th or 5th job. And just bearing in mind, I was like 20, maybe even 19. No, I was 20 when I did that. So that's, I mean, bizarre to me that how young I was, even though I thought I was really mature. But yeah, so the yellow preen dress with the little red Moschino bag was one of my favorite outfits of all time, because to me, that felt like it was very different to what she'd worn before. It was this, fantastic designer that she'd never worn before as well. Really contemporary, but still that silhouette that she loved. And it felt, I know that she felt fantastic in it. And I know that she felt like she really stood out and she was different. So I feel like that was when she'd really solidified, this is me now, this is my back to black look, and this is what I feel most comfortable in. And then the Brits in 2008, where I put the leopard print and the leopard print skirt, tartan corset top.
I remember the outfit, yeah.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, I was proud of that because we'd had no fitting and I'd had no discussion with her about it because she wasn't interested in talking about whatever. She just, expected me to bring something and it would be all right.
And she trusted, that must mean she trusted you, right? Like if she doesn't need to be engaged with it, it's because she knows that you've got it all taken care of.
Totally. And and both of us just sort of threw this outfit together and we were like, yes, this is brilliant. And we loved it. And I think she felt really great in that as well. So yeah, I'd say they were my two favorite. That was Dolce & Gabbana as well, that look. So yeah.
Even so, this week there was a story in The Guardian about how like ballet pumps are coming back. ASOS this week released another Fred Perry, Amy Winehouse collaboration. Like, can you believe that kind of the work you did with her 11 years ago is still kind of like dominating, influencing fashion in 2022?
I mean, it's remarkable. I would never have imagined. I mean, particularly when I was working with her, I wasn't thinking ahead. It was all about, because it was just, quite high pressured. I was just thinking about then and there. And I just, to think how much she has inspires people still and how often she's referenced in fashion it's amazing. And I'm so, to think that the Fred Perry collaboration, which I work with them on that now, is still going. Yeah, I'm so proud of her. And I'm so, I know how proud she would be as well. So it's, it's amazing to see. I get really excited knowing that she's still so relevant.
And I know that you co-curated an exhibition for her and her outfits. Was it 2020 as a way of kind of shifting so much of the dialogue since her death has been about sort of what a tragic downfall she had and all of this sort of stuff about drinking and depression. But for you, you wanted to reclaim that and be like, but she was a star and she had so much going for her. And I guess through her outfits and her style, that's a way of capturing Amy still in like a positive legacy and celebrating that iconic person she was.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was it. I mean, for me, it was part of the grieving process, I think, but I was really tired of just reading the same stuff, negative, focusing on the downfalls and not actually celebrating how much she achieved, even in the midst of such personal turmoil. And it was, it was unbelievable what she did and paving the way for so many other artists. And I really wanted to celebrate that. So I just made it my mission to do something that's pure. I mean, you can't really talk about Amy without talking about her struggles, but so, and it's important to talk about those, but it's also, I didn't want the emphasis to be on them. I wanted it to be like, look at all these amazing outfits she wore. Look at her style. Look at this incredible music. Look what she did for music. Like, let's focus on that. Let's celebrate her now. So yeah, and you can, the book and the exhibition exhibitions, sorry, there were 3. They were all really positive, and I think people really enjoyed them because of that, because it's sort of, obviously it's sad, but it was very celebratory. And I think it just allowed people that really loved her and really loved her music and loved her for her to really get a bit closer to her and celebrate her, which is so important.
And I think style gives you such a unique way into getting to know somebody. It's the things the way you're choosing to represent yourself to the world. Naomi, it's been so interesting talking to you. I've loved talking to you. Thank you so much. We always end the podcast with a piece of wisdom or something you've picked up over the years within your career. If you kind of look back, I don't know, since you started when you're working with Amy when you were sort of 18, 19, what have you learned? What's your one key, I don't know, keep your head above the water type piece of advice?
I think try not to pay too much attention to what everyone else is doing, and just you do you. Be yourself. Don't be afraid to be your unique self. Try not to stick too closely to trends or follow trends too closely, I think. And just, you can, Amy, I think, proved it, that you can just dress exactly how you want to dress, completely ignore everything else that's going on, and be celebrated for it. If you wear something with authenticity, it comes across, and people really, value that, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That's beautiful. Thank you so, so much. I've absolutely loved talking with you.
Yeah, I've loved it too. It's been really fun.
A big, big thanks to Naomi for chatting. If you want to keep up with her projects, you can head to her Insta. I am Naomi Parry. You can also read her book, Amy Beyond the Stage.